switch places with you. He's wanted to. I didn't want somebody to check with my CFC. Exactly. Suppose it'll save time if I go right in. Or just wait and see it.
Okay. We will call this emergency meeting of the Palmer City Council to order March 17th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Alcantara,
Here.
Councilmember Hudson,
Here.
Mayor Carrington,
Here.
Councilmember Best,
Here.
Councilmember Graber,
Here.
Councilmember Cooper,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Here.
All here?
All right. If I could ask Kathy Geddix, could I get you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next is approval of the agenda.
Move to approve. Second?
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there comments, discussion? Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple of questions of the attorney on this agenda. If you don't mind, it's two questions.
Okay,
The meeting that was called is to discuss improper use of council authority under PMC 207007. And that's in regards to directing the manager, the attorney to prepare legislation. Excuse me, thank you. To prepare, you want me to restate that? In the request to have this emergency meeting, it talks about improper use of council authority. PMC 207007 states that at a regular meeting, two council members may direct the city attorney, the manager, or the clerk to prepare legislation for action at a subsequent meeting. And this isn't legislation, this was direction. And so I have a hard time understanding of how this constitutes us being able to discuss action that happened at that previous meeting. That's the first question.
Madam Attorney?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I could take them one at a time. So 2.07007 or 77, I forget which, It refers to the directions. To my knowledge, that is the only item in code that allows the directives to be given without a vote of the council. And the reason that the only way that that's the authority that two council members can give directives, everything else is voted on, is to do legislation or anything in support of legislation. Like, for example, in the past, you've asked me to prepare like the MPO report, which would be for an upcoming legal opinion related to legislation. And the council has asked me to put together fact sheets or give a legal opinion. The same thing for the clerk or the city manager gathering data that would be in support of a future legislation. And the reason that it's set up so that that's the authority for two is because, so that allows for two council members to task any of the clerk, myself, or the city manager solely for legislation or anything in that circle, because then the legislation and that topic has to come back to council and to the public, so the public will have an opportunity of input and the council can vote on it. So that is the only authority, to my knowledge, for directives. Voting would be different, but the directives of two council is related to legislation. With the exception of the ethics code, which is, of course, the process for accountability for the elected officials, and that offers the framework for myself or the city manager upon a majority vote of the council. And those are the two avenues that I've been tasked to do things, or frankly, either the clerk or the manager could be tasked to do things. Those are the two authorities.
Councilmember Best.
At that very meeting on Tuesday night, we were provided a list of directives that the council has issued with the same process. And at that very meeting, we also had other council members direct staff, which are our 3 contract employees, to do things with that very same thing. It has been the precedent of the last 20 years that we've been following under to give directives to our 3 contract employees. So again, I will also remind you that at this very dais, we extended your contract that it expired with the council directive. We directed the manager to extend your contract so that you could go into executive session. That did not go before to have legislation provided. It was directions that were given from the dais with the council support.
2 points, if I may, Mayor.
Yes, Madam Attorney.
One, all the directives you'll see listed in that and that have been related are related to or supportive of legislation. Everything that I have done has been under the 2 authorities, legislation or investigations of council. There's 3 pathways to handle what you would consider bad action for the different parties in the city. There is elected officials. The elected officials correcting other elected officials is under our current ethics code. Contracted attorneys or contracted officials such as myself would be under a performance review, termination of contract, investigative that way. And staff is under Title IV, and they're the due process built into that. Those are the 3 pathways to deal with any wrongful behavior. To address your point regarding extension of my contract, the contract didn't. I would argue that the contract didn't. The foundation contract did not have a date and did not expire. There were requirements in it, such as a performance review to maintain that. So an administrative lapse, not scheduling it in time, would technically make the city in breach of contract, not myself, and it expiring. So the contract itself did not expire. Possibly an amendment did, but then it would have reverted to the original contract, which did require an annual review.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you for that explanation. What about the rest of all the items?
Well, and I can, if we could go through those if you'd like.
We've given direction from the staff, like I said, for the last 20 years in this process, where in our council comments or in other actions, we ask for council support. And then it's set on the table. That question is set on the table. Nobody waits for any lights to come on. Everybody, then you have an opportunity to second that or give support. A council person can give support, and then if somebody is in dissension, would like to not allow it, we don't wait to be recognized on it. We object to it, and then at that point, a vote is taken. If there's no objection, it carries as the will of the body, and that action is taken forward. And the other point is, under public meeting notifications, under emergency meetings, which is 2045, emergency meetings, public meeting notification shall be made by means of posting and/or publishing the agenda with reasonableness related to the emergency. And I do not understand how this meeting is an emergency. I see no reasonableness to the emergency of having to have this meeting for the legal action that was provided as seconded and no dissension at that meeting.
Madam Attorney?
So there was a couple things to comment on your last point. The determination of reasonableness for an emergency action, that's not my lane. However, I will say that in the past, there has been emergency meetings that have been called to make determinations about city managers or various things. That's a council decision. That's nothing to do with me. I also cannot speak to what has been done in the last 20 years, but I can speak to what I have been tasked with since I've been at the dais. And that has been under the two authorities of legislation, which can be overruled in 2.07 by a majority vote of the council to do a directive. It says that directive can be overruled by a majority vote of the council in 2.07, and it states that it has to be related to legislation. So the two authorities that I have operated under have been under, that I've been directed under, have been to prepare legislation or gather information for you, offer a legal opinion as defined by my contract, or operate under the ethics code and the tasks like that you have offered me there.
Point of order.
Councilmember Alcantara, what's your
Mr.
point?
Mayor, have we approved an agenda yet, or are we just having this discussion pre-approval of our agenda?
This is to determine whether or not how I'm going to vote on it.
Thank you.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just hoping to point out, one of the reasons for the lack of us yelling on objection is there was soft direction given to the council by the mayor for us to be more parliamentary and to be more calm during these meetings. And in the effort to do so, for example, when Councilman Graver's light turned on, I was waiting to turn mine on until she had a chance to speak in order to make sure these meetings run as smoothly as possible. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Best?
That isn't what happened previously when Ms. Hudson had made her motion earlier in that same meeting.
Mr. Mayor.
Nobody
Point
wanted to
of
have the
order,
mic.
Mr. Mayor.
Object?
Okay.
I think
Point of
we-
order,
thank you.
Councilmember
I think
Cooper.
we've gotten off the topic here by talking about the attorney's contract and all that stuff. That's really not the crux of this thing. I think the crux of this is that this meeting was called under a pretense of 2.07.007, which calls for council members may vote on anything regarding legislation. And the point is that this action that was done at the last meeting by directing the city manager to do something is not legislation. So therefore, this whole thing the meeting is immaterial because it doesn't meet the criteria of 2.07. Point of order.
Councilmember Alcantara, your point.
All respect to my fellow council member, Mr. Mayor, I would completely disagree. The fact of the matter is, we tabled this exact motion 3.5 months ago on a vote of 6-1 by this council. The fact that this even came up, and I admit that I was out of town, the fact that this even brought up and apparently sped through is frustrating when it should have been ruled at the time that the motion was not germane, that the motion was not in order, because we'd already tabled it indefinitely. Thank you.
Point of order.
Councilmember Best.
There is no indefinitely from this dais. Anything can be brought up over and over again.
Point of order. The point of this meeting.
Councilmember Graver, your
Thank you,
point.
Mr. Mayor. The point of this meeting is to discuss, and I said vote because I believe this needs to be voted on, but to discuss. Right now we're discussing what we're supposed to be discussing during the meeting. Can we just put the agenda through? Whatever the outcome is the outcome. But we're already talking about what the agenda's for.
Okay. Councilmember Best.
Thank you, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because in our code, it also says that we may not reconsider or rescind unless it is actually at that meeting. So what we are doing is we are creating an ad hoc situation to reconsider a legal directive, which is recallable.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, by my attempt at correctly using our etiquette by turning my light on and not getting recognized, and you're just comparing that to maybe someone didn't do that correctly previously, so you're saying that my attempt at objecting or trying to discuss your tasks shouldn't have been recognized, and that this meeting, which, by the way, I don't know where this came from, but the reason we called it an emergency meeting is because we were under the impression that to bring up something like this, we'd had to do it within 48 hours, so that's why we made it an emergency meeting. And after we realized that wasn't the case, that's why we pushed it forward, and that's why it's on a Monday instead of whatever that was, a Thursday, that we originally asked for it. Anyways, you're talking about the 2.06.110 about not rescinding anything doesn't apply because I did turn my microphone on and was not recognized.
Okay. Madam Clerk, could you call the roll for approving the agenda?
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Yes.
Councilmember Best,
No.
Councilmember Graver,
Yes.
Mayor Carrington,
No.
Councilmember Cooper,
No.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yes.
4-3.
Okay.
Motion passes.
All right. Next, we have audience participation. Please come forward. And we'll open audience participation. You have 3 minutes. And yes, please sign in.
Is this on?
Get it close to your
Of course we are.
nose.
All right, so we'll get started here. I know how short 3 minutes can be. My name is Linda Combs. I live at 335 East Melissa Rose Court here in Palmer. I've been a resident for 39 years. My credentials as such would take longer than the 3 minutes, so we're not gonna do that. I'm gonna forego any kind of resume because I recognize every face here and I believe you recognize mine. And I'm gonna hope that you will afford me the pleasure of acknowledging that I do not come and speak before this body lightly, and I do not do so without being prepared. I'm always actually known for being prepared, so I'm just prepared this evening to share with you my view of this particular meeting, which is frankly no different than what you just heard from a couple of your members. I don't believe there's any need at all for this hastily so-called emergency meeting. Over the past 5 months, this council has failed on many, many occasions to live up to the oath of office that they've taken. That means you failed the community by not appropriately serving and governing. Tonight's meeting has been called in an attempt to overturn a lawful action that was performed at City Council last Tuesday night on March 11th. The action of that meeting that some members wish to overturn is ironically, absolutely, as been pointed out, identical in the use of Municipal Code 2.07.007, one I've used myself in the past, regarding council legislation requests that other members of this council have used many times. Actually, I have a copy. I came in, did my due diligence, got my request put in, and actually, in the last 5 months, 17 times that has been invoked. And that doesn't count the last meeting on March 11th where it was invoked twice. 17 times. Request for example made similarly by Councilwoman Graver on January 28th, to direct the city attorney to begin an investigation of sorts. Or the one made by Deputy Mayor Tudor directing the city attorney to research changes that would be implementing changes to our municipal codes. Other numerous times in the past 5 months, then Councilwoman Hudson has used the same municipal code for a variety of subjects directing either the city attorney, the city manager, or the city clerk to perform a variety of actions once something else was already set in action. These are the same members who are now objecting to the use for the same code, and that is mystifying to the public, I can tell you, because I've been asked many times in the last several days about that. In the past 5 months, there's been 7 special meetings and 2 emergency meetings. That's an unacceptable and inappropriate amount of waste of the city's time and resources when it's being used in the manner of tonight's meeting. I can tell you I was on this council for 2 years before I'd attended that many special and emergency meetings. Please realize there can be no healing in this community until this kind of chaos ceases. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mike Molesky, I live here in downtown Palmer. I have to commend Linda Combs. I've known her for many, many years. We've served together in a variety of ways. I'm not going to attempt to do what she just did, which was to look over what you have been doing, well, what you have not been doing. But I would like to look forward and say the time is now, tonight. You're here, whether this meeting is appropriate or not, I have my own views about that. You have an opportunity to go forward and actually, to the watching audience, I haven't checked the numbers, but there are people watching beyond this room, actually act as if you were a council. Linda has described what she has seen. There are many people out there that would like you very much to stop bickering, throwing barbs at one another, and bringing up arcane aspects of the rules of running a meeting. I have served on many boards. I've served on this body. Rarely use most of the things that you've been using in order to say something about something that is really probably not even on the agenda. It is more on a personal agenda. That's my observation. So take this opportunity to maybe take a deep breath. And as you go forward to whatever you're going to be doing, reflect upon actually doing something that will move you on to the business of the city, which is it's been waiting for a long time, because you've got a lot of stuff out there that has been pushed aside while something else happens. That's my plea to you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
My name is Kelly McKay Dolphy. I've been a resident right outside of Palmer for over 46 years. Palmer's been my home. I don't like coming here and speaking. I just don't. It's not, I come here on important issues. I want to explain to you why I have had to come here the last few times. On October 8th, when that meeting happened, I was astounded. The next day, Mr. Tudor at the chamber luncheon introduced me to Councilwoman Hudson, first time I met her. I welcomed her, congratulated her, and even apologized that she had to come in and make such hard decisions. Her response was, it wasn't hard. It wasn't hard at all. That stuck with me. After that, I went back and watched the meeting again. I had some experience. I know some labor laws. I know the meeting, you can just say it was a wreck. I called Mr. Tudor and explained that the city could be in some serious trouble. He did nothing. Nothing. My second call was to Ms. Hudson's predecessor. It's a call I would later regret very much. How could a newly sworn in council member be so certain about decisions when she didn't even have the facts? A responsible elected official gathers information, seeks the truth, and ensures due process. But this case, the facts weren't even available. No investigation had been done. But I'm going to just go through this. I mean, I flat out was told she's going to burn the city to the ground to expose the corruption, to get rid of the good old boys club. She admitted to controlling, that she'll control the narrative. Do you think that I had a part of orchestrating this? Well, yes. Yes, I do. That's why I called you. I was informed multiple council members were involved. I sat back and I watched. I've watched you guys tear each other apart. I've literally watched laws, OMAs, ethic violations, misuse of office, leaked confidential information, and it's just not a big deal. This city needs to heal. You guys even went further. You literally leaked a letter of concern from one of your employees. That's disgusting. Not only once, you did it twice. And then you just kept going. You kept defaming city employees on social media. One of you sitting here right now, actually a couple of you, are responsible for this. Did you know on the previous meeting, the moment Ms. Hudson called for a vote of sanction and Mr. Alcantara seconded it, you broke the OMA Act. You're not allowed to call for a vote of action, an action item that was not properly placed on the agenda without public notice. That wasn't a mistake, that's a direct violation.
That's your time. Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Kathy Geddix, going to continue reading Kelly's statement. Did you know that by calling that vote, you denied Mr. Best his basic right to due process, not just a city ordinance nor just a state regulation, but federal law? Did you know due process exists to protect individuals from exactly this kind of abuse, and yet right here in this council, elected officials ignored it? You broke the law. So I ask you again, how can you sit here and act as if you represent this city with integrity when you continue to violate the very laws you were elected to uphold? The people are watching, and it's time for accountability. Closing statement. I hoped in private that you would do the right thing. That's why I wrote to you on December 17, giving you the chance to fix this, but you haven't. And yet you recalled 3 people for simply being in a closed Facebook group. I would rather have those 3 people sitting up there than the 4 council members and the attorney who are breaking the law every single meeting. Enough is enough. It's time for accountability.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
Sherry Carrington, last time I spoke to you guys, I actually attacked Victoria on her faith, and within a couple of weeks I apologized for that, because that was not how I want to show up in our community, and that's not what I want to see happen. That being said, at that meeting I was at, Alcantara mentioned that things had really changed when Jelly was here, of how the council worked together and respected and worked with each other. Well, Jelly has been gone for 6 months. And what do we have? The only thing that has changed is Victoria. I've seen her attack employees. From here, she's attacked employees, she's attacked the other council people with disrespect, with division, disruption. One of the things that Richard has asked for
is for some accountability on the ethics that's happening here. I don't know all the laws, but this is broken. And you guys have decided that the three gentlemen who have actually decades of years, sorry guys, of being on this council, you've decided that they're enemies of Palmer for whatever reason. Well, they're not, but if you think they are, fine. So let someone outside of this mess step in and show you what you're doing wrong, because this is wrong. Palmer deserves better than this. This is not healthy. This is not what Palmer is. Steve has served almost over the last 30 years, almost 20 years on this council. I have never seen anything like this. And so I'm hoping that one of you will have the guts to choose Palmer and fixing this than whatever you're trying to hold on to and maintain. Because there's something wrong. Ethics, how you guys have treated, especially Victoria, how I've seen you treat from there, how you treat people is wrong. And Palmer deserves better. You guys, it deserves better. Somebody stand up and say, yes, let an outside person come in and look at what we're doing and how we're doing it. Because what you do and how you do it and how you treat people matters. And that's, choose Palmer. One of you, choose Palmer, and let's figure out how this is broken and fix it and make Palmer good again.
Is there anyone else for audience participation?
My name is Frank Bell. I'll be very brief. I live out here, but I work in Anchorage. I commute every day. And in Anchorage, when people would find out that I was from Palmer, the first question they almost always would ask is, wow, so do you commute to Anchorage every day for work? Yes. Now the first question they ask is, what the hell is going on with the shit show of a city council in Palmer? And I know you guys, that groups you all as a whole, and I know that's difficult because we're all individuals, and you think I bring my best, I do my best, but I guess I would say maybe just think about what you could do as an individual to contribute to a better image for the city council, and less infighting, less bickering, and more collaboration and cooperation to get the things done that we as a city need to get done. Thank you guys.
Anyone else for audience participation?
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Dwayne Shelton, Chief of Police, or Citizen of Palmer, I don't know which one we want to go by today. But I want to let you know, each of you know that I have the utmost respect for every single member of this council. I know each one of you. I've known you for a long time. Some of you longer than others. We're on different sides of the political spectrum at some point, sometimes. But y'all each have something very unique to offer the city of Palmer. I'd like to turn your attention to our Madam Attorney. Throughout my tenure, I've had 25 years of working with attorneys. I value her opinion and her decision-making. You all made a great hire when she was selected. I call her frequently about advice pertaining to my job. The advice that she's given today is sound. It's easy to get emotional about, well, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. But listen to what she's saying. Legislation, the ethics, and the Title IV all allow for certain things. And there are certain things that you can and certain things that you can't do. She laid that out perfectly. If you'd like her to restate it, just ask her. throughout my tenure, I've had the opportunity or the duty to apply law, whether it be a traffic citation or it's, you know, a good one would be theft. When is it theft and when is it civil? There's a lot of things that make what seems to be a theft a civil issue. And just because it meets certain elements doesn't mean that it's criminal or doesn't mean that it's civil. It's got to meet all of them. But I would side with the rest of the people up here and say that somehow we need to find a path forward. Because right now, this is not it. It's not it. But if you put your political differences aside and the bickering, and actually look at what your attorney says and listen to her when you ask her a question, you will find that the rulings that she's making and the advice that she's given is sound. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else for audience participation? Okay, seeing no one come forward, we'll close audience participation. Next, we have new business. Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I wanted to say thank you to everyone who spoke during audience participation. Sorry, I'm one of those people who cries when they're kind of like upset and passionate about something, and I really hate that I do that, but here I am. So anyways, if you've been coming to these meetings for a while, you know that I don't speak up unless something really needs to be said, and I don't drag people down, and I didn't call this meeting for, you know, some stupid argument or because I don't like Palmer. You guys know I love Palmer, and you know I don't want this to be going on, and I hate it. I'm a middle child. I hate conflict, okay? This is not about some petty argument, like I said. I did want to address something that Linda Combs brought forward, and I think the attorney mentioned something about it. When I asked for the investigation into one of our fellow council members.
Excuse me, Mr. Graver, Councilmember
Yes.
Graver.
I'm getting to it. I'm sorry, yes,
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
All right.
So when Linda Combs brought forward the question concerning this, because she's asking why I brought forth the question of investigating a fellow council member, and why we didn't have to vote on that. And the reason for that is because that was concerning the Code of Ethics, and in the Code of Ethics it states that any two council members can ask for an investigation into a fellow council member, and that's breaking the Code of Ethics. That was separate from the code. So I just wanted to address that. Again, I'm sorry, I hate. Okay. So I did call this meeting, obviously, and I asked for the support of fellow council members. I know there's a lot of speculation and that a lot of people think, oh, they're trying to cover something up. I will be the first to tell you, looking at Mr. Best's request, I have no problem with the first one. The second one, I don't really have a problem with. I really believe that, and to clarify, that's asking for council's support to direct the city manager to hire outside legal counsel, not to exceed $15,000, to investigate and advise the council for ethics violations, to include disparaging and defamatory statements made from the dais from October through March, and to include any OMA violations by council from October through March. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. The investigation itself. However, for that specific request, I don't see the need to hire an outside attorney. I get that people have issues with our attorney. I agree with what our police chief said about her actions, and honestly, you guys, and you can tell me to shut up if you want, but she's been through a lot. She's had a lot of people retaliate against her, and she's had a lot of people treat her like garbage. And when I tell you, she doesn't talk trash to me about those people. If I call her and say, hey, I heard this happen, she treats them with kindness and respect, and she doesn't act like I'm acting right now. She's very calm and put together, and she handles it like a boss. and I'm glad we have her in the city. So that second one, I have no problem with. I think that the constituents deserve to know what's going on. If there are OMA violations, yes, you should know. I actually would like to ask the attorney, if I may, if this is appropriate. I forget which meeting it was at, but a few meetings ago, Councilman Best asked for to be brought forward information on a possible OMA violation or HIPAA violation from our deputy mayor, and you investigated that. Can I ask what your findings were on that?
Our agenda has these specific things that we're looking at, so
Okay.
this is
Well,
supposed to be a
Okay.
specialized emergency meeting, so yes, I would like to hear that report, but
I'm just
we've
saying though,
got a meeting.
I was just asking her to clarify because we've already heard the answer to that, and the answer is that no, it was not. And she can talk about it later. We can put this in another meeting agenda if you guys want to hear it, or I'll ask her at our next meeting during the attorney's report. Okay. There was nothing from that.
Okay, so
Yes.
you're bringing a motion,
Sure, I'll bring a motion.
okay.
Do I have a minute still to talk through the third one? Yes.
Sure.
Right? Okay, I have what, 10 minutes or something?
Usually we get a motion before we start discussing, but yes.
Okay, motion to, what do you need me to do so I can talk about this?
Go ahead, you were on to the third one, so go ahead.
Okay, fine, thank you. So, the third one is that he asked for council support to direct the city manager not to exceed $15,000 to hire outside legal counsel to investigate and advise the the council on the allegations made by the city attorney in October from the dais, to include staff, management, council, and the attorney's actions pertaining to the subject. We, on November 26, 2025, council as a whole voted to table indefinitely an investigation into the interactions between our previous city manager and the city staff and city attorney. Councilman Best, as he stated, is welcome to bring that item before the council at any time. However, it must be voted on as an entire council. He does not have the ability to carry out this investigation utilizing an outside attorney, costing the city money without the approval of the council. Our city attorney is a contracted employee, and therefore the correct manner to go about this would be an evaluation, which we had last month, during which Councilman Best seemed to have all of his questions adequately answered and moved on from this, and the vote to retain our attorney was unanimous. I don't know why he didn't bring forward an issue then. And third, I had my light on to object or discuss Councilman Best's requests, as in my understanding they were inappropriate. However, I was not recognized or called on to speak, and the meeting moved on immediately. The mayor made his comments and then gavelled out of the meeting. And attention was brought to the fact that my light was on by Deputy Mayor Tudor and Councilwoman Hudson. We have, as I think Deputy Mayor suggested or stated, we've been asked to continue appropriately with etiquette and turn our lights on before speaking and all that, and I'm just trying to respect that. Obviously, this council, most of us are new, and as we've heard from our constituents, a lot of us don't always know exactly how to proceed with things, and we're looking to the members of our council that have been on for a longer period of time for instruction, and when it seems like they're disregarding us, that's really frustrating. And I just called this meeting because I want to make sure we're doing things appropriately and that our attorney is respected. And so I'd like to move to discuss and vote on at least both tasks, the second and third task that Councilman Best requested of the city manager during the council comments at our last meeting. Thank you.
Second.
Okay, so is there discussion? Councilmember Hudson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also want to bring up something that I wanted to acknowledge really quick that was brought up by Councilman Best about an investigation I had asked for because it was brought forward, regarding the why we could ask for this meeting because of specifically what he asked for in council comments and how it's different from what I've asked for in council comments. I directed the city attorney to research into actions by the former city manager to see if they constituted a breach of the separation agreement and to bring that back to the council. And she hasn't engaged with the litigation team because that has to get brought back to the council to vote on. Just like a letter of censure against Councilman Best hasn't been brought forward because it's would be brought forward for the entire council to vote on. So I would like to know from Councilman Best
This is
when
not council comments. We're supposed to be discussing the item on the agenda.
yeah, so I'm asking when he's saying that we have gone against this code and we've gotten an investigation approved that was hiring outside legal counsel to spend upwards of $30,000 to investigate staff, the attorney, and this council. Or anybody. When have we gotten it approved without council vote for an outside legal attorney to be contracted for upwards of $30,000?
Okay, let's pause for a moment. Madam Clerk, so what is the motion on the table?
To discuss and vote on the task number 2. That was moved by,
Right. Okay, so I guess I'm trying to understand, if we were to bring it to a vote, what would the yes be, what would the no be? I'm just trying to understand. Councilmember Graver, would you want to clarify? We have a one-item agenda. We should be focusing on that.
Well, to be fair, Mr. Mayor, Councilman Best brought forward those concerns, and I believe that Councilwoman Hudson is just trying to draw some clarity into that issue. When it comes to voting, perhaps I should separate tasks 2 and 3 to where a vote of yes on either would be to move them forward and a vote of no would be to cancel the task.
Okay, so we have it clear and, all right, Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate that clarification. I wasn't here last Tuesday. That's part of the chaos, probably. But I can't think of a time in knowledge, and if it was this way with folks, decades of experience on city council, where you can just willy-nilly decide to spend $30,000 of the city's money with 2 people, then that is something that should never, ever happen again. And if things need to change and code needs to change, there should never be a time where people can decide quickly or not quickly with 2 people, we're gonna spend $30,000 of the city's money. That shouldn't happen. The way a deliberative body works is a majority vote. And sometimes it's ugly. I tell you, the State House right now has 21 members in the majority and 19 in the minorities. There's a lot of 21-19 votes. But there should never be a time where things, especially things that in my opinion were already tabled on November 26th, to bring things up again, it smacked of me like, hey, out of town, bring this up. And I was pissed when I heard about it, and I'm still like coming down from that. But I appreciate folks to come and talk to their elected officials, and that's a great thing. Know that I think everybody up here always chooses Palmer first. Always puts Palmer in their forethought of what is best. And what is best is not necessarily what was done 10, 15, and 20 years ago. Sometimes things have to change to become better. I don't see any value in spending $30,000 to picket scabs and things that are not. I don't know what was even suggested that somehow there was an OMA violation up here. I'm thinking not that I've been through a lot of boards, chambers, elected officials. I don't think there was, but I think this motion was out of order when it was made, should have been ruled out of order by the mayor, in my opinion, and it's just wrong. And I think anytime you come, it's one thing to say, hey, can our city attorney look at something and bring something back to us? But to say with 2 people out of 7 that you're gonna spend $30,000 of the city's money, I find that inherently wrong and would vote against it every single time.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know we're in an emergency meeting, but are we able to enter committee of the whole for discussion? Because it seems like there's gonna be a lot of back and forth.
I don't know that it's that complicated. Can I was going to read the direction that was requested, and is it okay if I divide it into 2 parts, to 2 questions? Do you want a restatement of the motion?
I think the easiest way, just based on my knowledge, is that I think that the easiest is Councilmember Brazier withdrew her motion and then Hudson withdrew her second, and you start over and start with 1 and then 2 for 2 and 3, sure? Is that what?
Okay.
Yes, I withdraw my first motion.
Okay, does the second concur?
Second.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
all right. Yes, Councilmember Graver.
would you like me to restate the motion separately?
Yes.
And I don't have the specific way he asked in front of me, so may I just, okay,
There you go.
thank you.
So we get that on the record, so we know what we're talking about.
Thank you.
I would like to first move that we vote on Councilmember Best's second request when he asked for council support to direct the city manager to hire outside legal counsel not to exceed $15,000 to investigate and advise the council for ethics violations, to include disparaging and defamatory statements made from the dais from October through March, and to include any OMA violations by council from October through March.
Second.
Okay, and then we're saying a yes vote would be to concur with that, and a no would be to object.
Yes. Yes, thank
Okay.
you.
All right, Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. I know that the council actually believes in the code, what it's stated, whether it's improper, out of date or whatever, that's immaterial. And whether you agree with it or not is also immaterial. If something meets the code, then we have to vote in favor of the code. And in this case, what the request is does not meet the code. The code states, at a regular meeting, 2 council members may direct the city attorney, the manager, or the clerk to prepare legislation for action at a subsequent meeting. The majority of the council may vote to override the direction. It says to prepare legislation. This information that was brought forth by Councilman Best is not legislation. So as a result, it is improper to even ask for the vote. Like I say, whether you agree with it or not, this is what the code states. If we want to change the code, then we're gonna have to go back in and change the code, but we can't change the code today. And also, every member of the council talks about transparency. The only way you can have transparency is if you in fact do investigations. If you don't do them, then what people look at are you're hiding something, or you don't want to get involved and get the people looked at. I think, regardless of, like I say, whether you believe it or not, that's what the code requires, and it requires that we believe in the code. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I ask then where in the code it says that you can bring something forward like this and you don't need to vote on it?
It does not state that.
So then, may I ask, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Councilmember Graver.
So then why this meeting is still appropriate because I turned my light on to object and was not recognized?
I understand, Mr. Mayor. I understand
Yes,
that, but
Councilmember.
it was during council comments, right? And everybody had their opportunity to run council comments, and unfortunately, you had your opportunity. It went to Mr. Best, and then it went to the mayor, and he did not see your light, and therefore you were not called on. So, I'm sorry for that.
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Best.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's been commented in a couple of the comments that it was 2 council members directing staff And the process is, we ask for council support to direct the manager, the attorney, or the clerk to do an action. It's placed on the table. It is then open for anybody to support. And there was support. There was no objection, because it's always been open for anybody to object at that time. And there was no objection, so it carries as a unanimous consent. And we, somehow I turned my mic off. We have been doing this for 20 years, that if there is no objection, it carries as the will of the body, as direction to that employee to take action. I merely stated the limitation that I knew that he could spend up to, and I wanted to make sure that he did not spend up to over his limitation, so it would allow for us to start an investigation, and when those things that were alleged are reviewed, and if there is any merit to that, then that would come before us if the investigation was going to cost us to have to spend more monies. But the idea is to get the investigation started. If there's nothing there, then there's nothing there, and then that can be reported to the public as well. But this premise of that 2 council members were directing, the entire body had the opportunity to either object at that moment, or it got carried as unanimous, and there was no comment before. And like I said, you look historically, and even at that meeting, there was other council members that had made the same direction, and nobody waited to have their microphone before they gave support or dissented.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I do understand where you're coming from with that, but again, we had a council member that had their light on that was not called before the meeting was gavelled, and you happened to be last on council member comments, so unless someone yelled out objection, which I understand I should have done that, but I was waiting for Councilmember Gray to get called on, there is no purpose for objection. And my issue with this is, I want the city to move forward because we have a new city manager coming on pretty soon. I want us to move forward from this. We're still living in October 2024, and we got to move on. Bringing up an investigation after these many months seems weird to me because it's been so long, and we've already voted as a council, as a body, to not do it. It's not that anyone's trying to hide anything or anything. It's just going to cause more division. I just want our council to work well together for Palmer to work on things we need to work on, not hashing out what happened months ago. And it just seems like, we've divided up into ever since October, a pro ex-city manager camp and an anti-ex-city manager camp. And we're still stuck in that. We should be in the pro Palmer camp. And I just think we just need to move forward and just go, you know what, we just need to look at our new city manager and have success with that and move on as a city. And because to me, it just seems very odd to have, again, because our ethics code does state that it goes to our attorney, which was bypassed. Our attorney's part of the investigation, and she just had a review. And not only that, but I mean, just the idea that, with just 2 people saying something, like I could say, I want council support to go, paint, Fireweed Avenue blue, and then we have to spend $15,000 to go do that.
No, somebody would object.
Well, if no one objects, but that's the thing.
That's
I mean,
what
if someone's lights on and they don't get called, well, too bad. I mean, this is kind of my issue, is that I think this needed to be a vote because of the weight of it, and it's something that we literally voted on previously. It just seems like this needs to be open to discussion and open to a vote from the council, not just have 2 people, and if someone has their light on and they get ignored, then it goes through. Thank you.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just love how it's ignored that I was trying to object to it, and so I guess what I'm taking away from this is that I need to turn my light on and start screaming or something to be recognized. Is that what we're saying? Because otherwise you're just saying, well, you tried to object but it didn't work, you didn't speak up in time, and my light was on. So me trying to be, not disorderly is working against me, I guess. That's what you're saying. That's really frustrating, and I do not, let me just say, just from that experience, all other things aside, whatever different disagreements and disunifying situations are going on, it was really weird to me how the council comments went to this way, and then went all the way, skipped Richard and the mayor and got to me, and then Richard got to go next, and then suddenly the mayor said like 2 words and gabbled out. Like, that was really strange to me. I'm just gonna say that.
All right,
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you. And I do want to agree with that. The last 2 times before that Councilman Best was going to do something like this in council comments after they had a meeting in the back during multiple breaks they took to discuss it during the council meeting. Then it was again the same exact rotation where he was placed last or second to last with the mayor last. And that's continued to happen repeatedly since October. Thank you.
All right, are we ready to vote on this motion?
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember Cooper.
just one quick comment. A concern I have is, right now we have the ability of 2 council members to request something, you know, whether it's action by the clerk or the manager or the attorney. The precedent that we're setting now by voting against that, what it means is we will have to vote on everything that 2 council members bring up, whether it means going to the city manager and requesting an item be put on the agenda. That will have to come to the council. If it's just to require the clerk to bring out more paper, that's going to have to come for a vote. And I'm with Mr. Alcantara. We need to change the code. The code is antiquated, and I'm in total agreement with that. And for Deputy Mayor, I'm actually in agreement with October 9th is long gone. Jelly is gone. We need to move forward and get this crap out of here and start doing things for the city.
Councilmember Alcantara.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate those comments, and I do think there's certainly a difference between preparing legislation, putting resolutions on the packet versus spending $30,000. I would say there's definitely a line there that's completely very clear. I would say as a suggestion to you, Mr. Mayor, one of the things that might be considered for either tonight or in future council meetings is that the speaker arrangement should really end with the deputy mayor and the mayor. And in my opinion, the deputy alternate mayor, the deputy mayor and the mayor. You should be able to say, hey, I want this person to go and that person to go amongst the 4 who are not in leadership. The 3 that are in leadership should go last because the optics look terrible. I was mentioned earlier that when things happen and it's always a particular council member going last right before you gavel out, and I wasn't here, but boy, it didn't look it didn't look great. It didn't sound great. And so I do think there's a lot of potential for the public to think things are in cahoots versus things are in a recognized manner and you do things in a certain manner. And that way, if you end it with the deputy alternate mayor, the deputy mayor, and the mayor, you'll eliminate that. You'll eliminate those very, very poor optics. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to just, for Councilman Cooper, I do understand, definitely we don't want to make this a regular occurrence. My only reason for supporting this was because there was an attempt to object that was ignored. And I'm not saying it was on purpose, I'm just saying it just happens. I mean, there's 2 computer screens right there. The mayor can't see the light very well. And so we weren't able to follow the normal process because of that. So I said, okay, we should do this right and come back and discuss it as a group. Thank you.
A quick comment, Mr.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate my fellow council members' comments, and I would agree with them. And might I just suggest, Mr. Mayor, that perhaps when someone brings up something that needs council support, if you ask, does anyone have any objections so that it's not missed? That would be very much appreciated. Thank you.
Councilmember Best.
Well, it's been several minutes, but of lots of comments, but actually, if we're going to talk about the legislation and the vote that we're about to have instead of everything else that isn't on the agenda, we are about to have a vote, which is in essence a reconsideration of the action that happened on Tuesday night. And because of this, I will be stepping out of the room because I will not participate in taking action in a reconsideration vote. I believe that it is recallable, and if you all want to go ahead and do it, you guys go ahead and do it, but I will be stepping out of the room and will not be participating in this vote.
Okay, are we ready to vote then?
Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to say it with Mr. Best in the room, but I would vote yes on this item if it was altered to task our city attorney with carrying it out rather than an outside attorney, as it would not cost the city any extra money. And I do believe that the constituents deserve to know if there's anything to be found, and I have full faith in our attorney that she would give us the report honestly and in full. Thank you.
Just a clarification.
Councilmember Cooper.
Just a clarification. What is the after all this? What is the yes vote again?
You still have the paper?
I can
Go ahead and
reread
read
it
that.
if you would like. Yes, thank you. It is that Mr. Best asked for council support, Councilman Best asked for council support to direct the city manager to hire outside legal counsel not to exceed $15,000 to investigate and advise the council for ethics violations, to include disparaging and defamatory statements made from the dais from October through March, and to include any OMA violations by council from October through March.
Okay, and a yes vote is, I'm sorry?
A yes vote is to send it through as
To confirm that.
as requested.
To let that go.
Yes.
No, to confirm that. A no vote would object.
So a yes vote, hire the attorney, and no vote is, gotcha. Thank you.
Correct.
Madam Attorney?
Yes vote is to send that
Yes,
through
Mr.
as
Mayor, I just wanted to offer clarification on a couple of things, if I could have heard different comments put forth. I did want to set up that the precedent in question, I wanted to address that that the distinction that I'm hearing from individuals is that what I have done in the past and being tasked is legislation related, meaning that it's a directive, not a motion that was voted on. It's a directive by two individuals without a vote that then tasks one of the three to draft something that uses the current resources of the city, so money is not involved, nor is so money is not involved, and it's within the legislation, and then that comes back. There's no decision being made. That comes back to, that's why it's authorized. That it comes back. And for example, when the investigation was facilitated in October of 2023 for the four, when that was done, that was an item that was tasked to the Attorney Gaddy at the time, who then recommended outside counsel to evaluate that with a specific scope. And that was a voted on item that was then handled and then reported on back to the council. And that was a several week process. So it was not a directive. And that's the distinction. And so I would ask the parliamentarian regarding, I don't believe that this is a motion to reconsider anything, because it was a directive that was initially given that didn't involve a vote in the first place. So I just wanted to point out that, I mean, obviously the council's discretion, but there was no vote that occurred. This was a directive. And it does say, there's not specifically a time limit in code, but it does say that a directive can be overturned by a majority of the council. And that's just simply what, there's no other specifications, and it's older, so clarification on that, but that's simply what the code says.
Okay. Are we ready to
Mr. Mayor.
vote? Councilmember Graver?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If I'm understanding you correctly, does this need to be changed to a,
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Nothing, I was just commenting on, that it was direction that was given, not a motion.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify with the city attorney. So there was never a vote made, so this isn't a vote to rescind. This is just a vote on whether we should do this or not.
That's my understanding, sir.
Thank you,
Okay,
please.
so a yes vote basically concurs with it and a no would object. Okay? Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
Yes.
Councilmember Hudson,
Wait, I'm sorry. What?
Okay, we're
Can we go over the thing, because my understanding was, my understanding was that a yes vote is to go
Concurs.
concur with Ms. Graver.
No.
You got it backwards.
With the direction. Okay.
Okay.
So,
May I see the direction one more time? I'm sorry, when we were going through this, I recall that that there was changes made by Councilman Graver, but
If I may.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor,
uh,
you want me to read it again?
please, thank
Okay.
you.
okay, go ahead, Councilmember Graver.
Thank you. So a yes vote is to send this through, a no vote is to overturn it. Yes to Mr. Best asking for council support to direct the city manager to hire outside legal counsel not to exceed $15,000 to investigate and advise the council for ethics violations to include disparaging and defamatory statements made from the dais from October through March and to include any OMA violations by council from October through March.
I apologize, I changed my vote too.
I
Okay.
had
Alright.
suggested
So,
a different version, but
Okay,
you go.
Mr. Best left.
I apologize, I thought that was on the table, thank you.
All right, Madam Clerk,
Is everybody clear?
I think, are we all clear?
Yeah, it's me being dumb.
Okay,
Just making sure.
all right.
Deputy Mayor Tudor,
No.
Councilmember Hudson,
No.
Councilmember Graver.
No.
Say no? I couldn't hear you. Did you say no?
No.
Thank you. Mayor Carrington,
Yes,
Councilmember Cooper,
Yes.
Councilmember Alcantra.
No.
Motion fails.
okay. Is there anything else, or we
There's two parts.
Mr. Mayor?
There's two parts?
done? You have the wordage. So, that was the second one.
Okay. May I?
Yes, Councilmember Graver.
I would like to move to overturn the directive that Mr. Best asked for council support to direct the city manager not to exceed $15,000 to hire outside legal counsel to investigate and advise the council on the allegations made by the city attorney in October from the dais to include staff, management, council, and the attorney's actions pertaining to the subject.
Okay, but we'll keep it the same, so a yes concurs with that and a no
Correct.
objects. Okay?
Objects to the removing of that.
You utilize the word overturn, if I may, so you,
Well, it's
I'm
not the
sorry.
same as the last one.
so just so the yes
What
is
did
a
I
no,
say the
if it
first
would have
time?
flipped it, the second one would flip than the first, so.
Okay,
What did I say the first time that I should say again?
so,
That's where I got confused last time, so this is.
to approve, basically, what about the word, will that word,
Yes,
approve?
exactly. Now,
So-
yes is no, no.
Your motion is to approve it, and then a yes would approve it and a no would
Okay.
object. So approve the request,
Okay.
just to keep it to a,
Do I need to
Yeah.
repeat it all? Okay.
Yeah, just for clarification.
All right. So I'd like to move that we approve Mr. Best's, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Mr. Best's request for council support to direct the city manager not to exceed $15,000 to hire outside legal counsel to investigate and advise the council on the allegations made by the city attorney in October from the dais to include staff, management, council, and the attorney's actions pertaining to the subject. So a
okay,
yes sends it through and a no
objects.
objects.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there a second? There's a second, all right. Yes, Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Perfectly clear now on what a yes and no vote does and doesn't do. but it kind of shows that this whole process was ill-conceived, and I'm glad I'm here to be able to vote no on this. Thank you.
All right, any other comments from council? Are we ready to vote? Oh, Councilmember Graver.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wondered if Councilman Best wanted to be back in to discuss any of this, or no? Okay.
I suspect the logic would fit for this one as well.
Okay, thank you.
And I will just say, go ahead say for the record that, yes, from where I'm sitting, there's computer monitors, and I did not see your light on at the last meeting. Okay, if you can call the roll for approve, is a yes to approve and a no to object.
Councilmember Hudson,
No.
Councilmember Graver,
No.
Mayor Carrington,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper,
No.
Councilmember Alcantra,
No.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Now we're on to council member comments. Councilmember Alcantra.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really appreciate the folks coming out tonight. The beautiful thing about politics is we can always agree to disagree. So I've missed, I think, one council meeting in the last 12 months. Unfortunately, that was the one 6 days ago. Otherwise, I'm very confident this wouldn't have even occurred or happened because I would have stood up and yelled. Not the way to do business. I don't care if it's the way they did business 10 or 15 years ago, with all respect to my friends that have served on this body for a long time. It's not the way to do business in an elected body. The way to do business in an elected body is a majority vote of an elected body gets to decide what moves forward. Whether you like that or not, vote us out, put new people in, do what needs to be done. This was not a vote to rescind. This was a vote because the vote that took place November 26 should have superseded any of this. It should have been recognized and said, this is a motion that shouldn't even have been in order to start with. We certainly need a lot of training here in city, and associate myself with the comments earlier from our deputy mayor, is that it's an exciting time for Palmer that we're gonna have a new city manager here. I think John D. has done a fantastic job with a very difficult task. And I applaud him and think he has done yeoman's work in an extremely difficult situation. But a new manager is going to help us move forward. And we need to move forward. This is a new era. This isn't an era of how things were done in the past. As Billy Joel said, the good old days weren't always good, and tomorrow ain't as bad as it seems. We got to move forward to tomorrow. It's a bright future for this city. We have money in the bank. We have an exciting project that we have to get going on with the library. We have a lot of wonderful things that could happen to Palmer. But when things are, there's always going to be the give and take of a 4-3 vote. Hopefully, we're going to get back to a place where we have a lot more 7-0 votes. Just on February 25th, we had 9 issues come before our council. We got through them in just a little over 2 hours. I can't remember if there's a couple 6-1 votes in there, but we got the work of the city done. And that's what we need to get back to, getting the work of the city done. Not looking in the rearview mirror to 5 months back and saying, oh, what happened there? And as so eloquently stated by the deputy mayor, not have a pro-Jelly camp and a pro-Palmer camp. Let's all be pro-Palmer, and let's move forward with our new city manager. Let's move forward and hopefully get some training and start having some things where if things aren't understood or actions not taken, we make sure they're understood before we have votes. We don't kind of fumble the ball around. We make sure people are clear on what they want to proceed. That's what should happen every time. And we get more training on Robert's rules. I suggest there's people up here that don't know it as well as they should after all these years. But we get trainings on them from other people, bring in some trainers, and let's move the city forward. And I appreciate everybody coming, whether they live in the city or don't live in the city. That's not relevant to me. It never has been. I think people should come here, be able to address their elected officials, their council members in Palmer. I know people, Butte, Lazy Mountain, other places. Where do you live? I live in Palmer. They still claim Palmer because Palmer's Alaska at its best that we need to get back to. And it's a great place to live, great place to raise your family, and it's a great place to be from and a great place to be an elected official at. And I hope we get back to those days. And I thank you all for being here, and thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilmember Graver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Alcantara, for your comments. I agree with you wholeheartedly. My apologies for getting emotional. I really don't like to do that. If you guys don't want me up here, please recall me. This is obviously not for my, not for fun. I don't do this for fun. In light of the fact that I think our constituents are probably concerned that that second task needed to be brought up by Mr. Best or Councilman Best, I wanted to ask for council support, and I would be 100%, I wanted to go to a vote to direct the attorney to investigate and advise the council for ethics violations to include disparaging and defamatory statements made from the dais from October through March, and to include any OMA violations by council from October through March.
Second.
Okay, that would actually be support because it's not actually a vote. Is that what we want to Madam Attorney.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, the authority to do that would be based under the framework of the Ethics Code of Conduct. And if I could offer it, that does require a majority vote to do that. So I just, if you'll recall a couple meetings back, I did highlight that there was a conflict between the direction with the legislation and the majority vote required for the ethics code, and that we'd have to flesh those out. So if you're gonna do it firmly under that, that would require that. I also just want to point out to council that they did recently task me to evaluate and present a framework of ethics, including hearings and a process in place that I just recently started. That was a brand new thing. So there are gaps and holes in our code of conduct.
Good. I guess I am, in the interest of transparency, I'm wondering if we should bring this forward as an item on the agenda that can be noticed. And maybe you could work with the attorney.
I can do that, yes.
To come up with language so it'll come and be noticed. And
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, and Mr. Mayor.
Oh, yes, Councilmember.
Sorry, just one last comment, if I may, for my comments. Okay. I know this is way off topic, but I'm not sure about the time frame for this. But I know that the Palmer High School is facing the basically their Japanese program, or at least the Japanese level 1, is about to be possibly gotten rid of, and I wondered if as a council. No? It has. Okay, well that's great news. Thank you. Then I will stop there.
We'll allow that interruption there. All right. Councilmember comments. Councilmember Best.
No comment.
Okay. Councilmember Hudson.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank everybody for coming out tonight to this meeting, and I was extremely hopeful, like what Councilman Alcantara was saying, for the city to move forward. While Councilman Best was gone for 3 meetings, I felt like we were doing that as a council. We had moved forward with hiring a new city manager, and he came back and started with this again, so that's not a surprise. Again, also, if you guys have a problem with my behavior on this council, feel free to try and bring forward a recall. Honestly, I am disgusted that me bringing forth truth and transparency costs people who will be affected by it being revealed problems. And anytime somebody comes up here and starts getting to the bottom of the truth of what's going on, it becomes a problem with other members of this council. And that's what I'm working hard to make sure doesn't happen again, is that just because somebody has a differing opinion or a differing thought or brings forth light to things that are going on in the city, that doesn't always mean that that person is somebody to be attacked or to be harassed. Or to be given unwarranted attention constantly. But that's fine. I just also want to remind everybody that as a new council member, I do have 180 days as a new council member, and that can be retroacted. So anything after Valentine's Day is what you can hold me accountable for. Thank you and have a great week.
Councilmember Cooper.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple things. We have an obligation as a council to follow the code, and we have to stick to that. And if we don't like the code, there is an opportunity for us to change the code. But the public requires that we follow our own code, and we have to be sure that we continue to do that. We can't, just willy-nilly say, well, I don't like this part of the code, we'll change it, we'll vote on something different. And I'm in agreement. There are some things, the code's been in existence for a long time, and there are a lot of things in there that need to be changed. And I think we need to review that. But as it's, our job is to, follow the law. And so that's kind of where we're at. Another thing I'm concerned about is that in regard to this meeting, the three folks that brought it forward, be concerned that there's not an OMA violation in there. That we had three folks, and if anybody was in contact with Councilman Alcantara, or he called them or anything, there's a perception out there that the public is going, hey, why do we have a meeting on Thursday? Then we have a meeting on next Monday. What happened in between times? I'm not accusing anything, just say be concerned that people are looking, going, hey, there's three council members, the fourth one got involved, how did that work? So just, please, we don't need to have OMA violations. They're not fun to deal with. But on a happier note, happy St. Patrick's Day, and I hope everybody has a great one. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Tudor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming out. It's very difficult to sit up here because I know that there are some people in the audience that don't agree with me, and it's very difficult when I highly respect those people to have to look and go, there are certain aspects of the way things happened on Thursday that made me support us doing this meeting. I've always believed that City Council should be more or less able to be a revolving door, that we can have new people come onto the council and they can flourish here, and that someone that goes, you know what, I'm tired of the way something's done with our city government, that they can not just be elected here, but also be able to follow the meetings and do the work that they want to do when they're on here. And I'm hopeful that we're moving in that direction to simplify things, make things more understanding. It's kind of like with the previous vote, there was a pause and kind of going, are you sure you meant to do that? That's incredibly important that we need on this council, is just those pauses to be able to go, hey, is this what you want to do? Or some guidance and go, hey, I see that you want to do this legislation or this change. Let me help. This is how you do it. There needs to be that. And, and regarding to, training, I'm looking forward to us doing that here once new city manager comes on board. We're going to be doing this training to try to help us be better as a body. And I'm very hopeful that we'll do this annually, so that way we can all be better prepared for this. And I appreciate the public's just patience with us, because I'm sure it's frustrating to see us do an emergency meeting like this. It wasn't the goal, but simply after that meeting happened, we all, but the two of us the three of us kind of went, that really wasn't, we didn't feel like we had an opportunity to object. And again, I come from the small business world, so I kind of look at things a little bit differently. And to me, this is the same kind of thing with our city manager, as if, as you're at a company and you have a manager leave. It's the same kind of thing. That's why after that happened, I wanted to see what happened on those deleted emails, not because of any kind of weird thing, but just because I just want to make sure the ball didn't get dropped. Was what do? You make sure everything's taken care of and you move on and you work with the new manager because we have work to do. We have a job to do here. I don't want to sit here and rehash this over and over again where we're doing, investigation after investigation or bringing this back over and over again. We need to move forward as a city and go on and do the good work that we have because we need to grow our economy. We need to make sure our city grows. We got to make sure that we as a council are representing the city well. There's a lot of things that need to be done. We have roads that need to be repaired and so on and so forth. We have to make sure that we're always focused on the future. And I just, we got to make sure that we stop this drama, that we stop these political attacks, that we stop posting stuff on Facebook. That's, I've been seeing all kinds of stuff and it's coming from everybody. It's not just, this isn't attacking one person or other. This is just from all sides. We need to get better about this because the one thing I hear from people when they talk to me is they just want to see the drama over. They don't want to see us in the newspaper in a negative light. And I think we all agree on that. And hearing from the people I know, we're all in agreement. We just want this kind of drama to stop. And I think the best way to move forward with that is just to look to the future and go, hey, let's work with the new city manager. Let's look to the future and start seeing how we can improve. And I don't think we need an investigation to do that because to me it's glaringly obvious what needs to be done. But it's something that we need to make sure that we're constantly looking to improve. Just like a normal person, you always have to try to make sure you're better tomorrow than you were today. Thank you.
Earlier it was mentioned about optics, and I find it very difficult that every time we bring up the idea of an independent investigation, this council refuses to look at it. And I'm not saying that I don't trust our attorney, that there's just, the optics are bad for a reason, and I think that we need to know what has gone on and if we are doing things right. So that's just my comment, and we're adjourned, 7:29.